I'm Ashley Hawkins, and I am the manga librarian. And today we are talking about manga news. So, what's been going on with manga for actually the past couple of weeks? Because last week I was just way too busy to really get into it. So, yeah, it's been kind of a crazy week. And actually, there's been a lot going on in the world of manga and anime, and I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to just jump right in. So, yeah, already as of this morning, there's more manga news than what I had originally planned for this roundup. So the big news this morning is that there is a major piracy site administrator who has been found guilty and sentenced to 3 years in jail and a 10 million yen fine in Japan, in Fukuoka. That is just another... piracy is a serious issue in manga, and this is just more sort of indications of that, and sort of signaling from the Japanese government that they are taking piracy very seriously. Kodansha also put out a statement upon this decision, supporting the decision and indicating that they will pursue prosecution for offenses such as this. So it's an interesting development. It's also a big advocacy point for us as librarians to really make sure that we are advocating for our collections and making sure that our patrons are using our resources if they are, unable to afford manga, making sure that they are using libraries and what we have available, as opposed to going to sites that steal from mangaka. There are plenty of legal ways to read manga, and we are a major way to do that, and this is a big advocacy point for us. We should really being since we are like kind of the, because we are librarians, we should really be supporting mangaka and opposing these piracy websites. So it's another big reason why I am such a huge advocate for manga in libraries, because there are people who can't afford manga, and they should be using libraries and not illegal websites, because libraries do make sure that mangaka get paid. So that was a big thing this morning. Also, I wanted to point out the Manga Pride Readathon. It's something that I'm participating in. It's being overseen by a few members of the manga community who identify as LGBTQ+. And it's kind of a big readathon that's happening this month. There's a bingo board that I'll put up here on the screen, and it's just a really fun way to make sure that you're reading LGBTQ+ titles this month. There's actually quite a few, and there's actually been some big releases recently. So we have Boys Run the Riot that recently came out, and I Think My Son Is Gay, actually both translated by the same translator, and there's other titles as well. We're seeing more and more diversity in what we're getting translated out of Japan, And this is a really great way to expose yourself to more of those things. And for me, it's kind of a way for me to read a little bit more Boys Rabu, and look at stuff that I don't normally look at, because I've said before that I'm a little bit biased towards Yuri. So I'm trying to read a little bit more Boys Rabu and Yaoi. So I'm trying to expand a little bit. I really encourage you to participate. June has just started. You're more than welcome to hop on. Like I said, it's a really great way to diversify what it is you read. I don't know. I'm trying for a blackout, which means I'm trying to get all the squares filled in. We'll see if I can manage that. There's a couple of them that are a little tricky. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. It's also something you can always encourage your students to participate in. I'm going to be encouraging my GSA to participate, because I have a lot of crossover between my anime club and my GSA. So that's something you can do. Also, speaking of anime clubs, School Librarians United, the podcast that focuses on school librarians and school library issues, actually had an anime club episode featuring Julie Stivers and her students from her anime club, and it was a really great episode because it not only talked about what is successful in Julie's club, but also focused on the students and gave the students a voice in terms of like what is successful for them, what they love about anime club, what they love about anime and manga. And I think it's a really good resource for both people who already have established clubs, but also maybe for people who are still kind of learning. So I really encourage listening to it. I had a lot of fun listening to it. I think there's always things to learn when it comes to running clubs and programming, and you can always find out more from how other people do things. So I really recommend that podcast episode, and I honestly recommend that podcast in general. I find it really useful for my professional life. It brings up a lot of issues and things that are good for me to think about, and in a nice podcasty format. Turning to more anime-centric news, the big news that really has been a topic of discussion in the anime and manga community has been the passing of Kentaro Miura sensei, who was the mangaka behind Berserk, which is a manga that has been running for an incredibly long time, about 30 years. It is a seinen series known for basically forming the dark fantasy genre and for its incredibly detailed artwork. There are multiple reasons why Miura sensei's passing has been a big point of discussion. First off, he is mostly credited with, like I said, formulating the dark fantasy genre of not only manga but also video games and other media. If you've played Bloodborne, Dark Souls, honestly, a lot of fantasy titles here in the States owe a lot to Miura sensei, and there are a lot of things that wouldn't exist without him. He has an enormous impact, and he passed away at an incredibly young age, 54, and it has come on the tail end of a lot of health issues and hiatuses brought on by overwork and stress and things that are major issues in the manga community. And it has, in a lot of ways, made people really consider, or at the very least, it should be making people really consider the demands that mangaka are put under, particularly for long-running series. Berserk is now an unfinished series, and there's so much pressure on mangaka to put out chapters on certain terms in certain on a certain schedule, and it comes from the fans, it also comes from the publishers, it comes from multiple sides, and it's something that we really need to reckon with, and we really need to understand that, you know, these are humans, and it would really be nice to still have Miura sensei here, because he was an incredibly valuable member of the manga creating community. I'm going to link some really good articles that delve really deeply into this particular topic, that examine, first off, Miura's impact on the community. Kate Sanchez wrote a really amazing article about that. Berserk is an interesting manga because it is incredibly dark, incredibly violent, but also sparks a great amount of hope, and it's very beautiful despite being very violent and very gory, and containing a lot of things that can be potentially triggering. It's a title I would not put into a school library without really understanding it and really understanding your patrons. It does contain things like sexual assault, extreme violence, and so on. In my library, it's only accessible in digital format and can only be read by my 11th and 12th graders. And we only have the first 3 volumes. And then students need to go pursue it elsewhere. As much as I love it, I am a big fan of Berserk and Miura Sensei's work, but you know, I also understand what the work is, and it's a dark piece of work, but at the same time, the hope and the growth that the characters go through means a lot to people. It really has coalesced a strong community, and Miura's loss was really strongly felt by the community. So Kate Sanchez's article from But Why Though podcast really does a great job of examining that. There's also an article that really delves deeply into the issue of overwork in the comics industry in general, and as well as particularly in the Japanese manga industry. And then there is a general obituary. So, you know, there's several articles for you to like delve more deeply into this. And I encourage you to kind of understand it a bit. I think students are probably going to be coming to you with more curiosity about Berserk and a desire to read it. And having some awareness of it and why there is this very big influx of interest is probably important. The other thing is, like, a lot of mangaka right now are talking about how Miura sensei influenced them. Several mangaka worked with him. He was very integral to the industry. And his loss is going to be very profoundly felt. It already has been, and it will continue to be. Coming off of that, our final headline is that there was a little bit of fact-checking that had to happen in the anime community last week. So there was a headline that was screenshot and shared all over Twitter. And I think it was because it was one of those headlines that, like, the headline itself was very provocative, and it told a particular story, but then when you read the actual article, things were very suspicious. And that is actually what kind of happened last week. So I saw the original headline, and the headline was basically that Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, had outsold all of the American comics industry by an insane amount. So it had just completely outsold all of it. And because I do this particular segment for my channel, I actually went digging and was like, okay, I need to find this actual article because I'm only seeing the headline and I need the numbers, and you know, I'm a librarian. I want the full context. And when I went looking, I found this very weird article that didn't link to particular numbers and was filled with very odd opinions, and just was not great. And that's what people quickly found out, was that the clipped headline told a particular story, but then the article made things very weird, and there was nothing to really back up the numbers, and so there was some fact checking that was done. And so Anime News Network dug a little bit deeper, disproved the claim, because the numbers just didn't really add up. Demon Slayer has done insanely well, but it's a very messy story. And so I really encourage you to read the Anime News Network story, because it delves into, like, what was sort of problematic about all of this and unravels it. There's definitely a lot of strong growth in manga. Manga is selling really well. American comics also are not selling as great as they could. When we talk about that, though, we are really just talking about American superhero comics. It's very shaky, and like I said, I really encourage you to read the article, because it's also a really great article of fact-checking. It may actually be a really good teachable article to show how some reporting can be done to straighten out inaccuracies that spread very widely on social media. And luckily, luckily what happened was, being since, like, Anime News Network did this piece and everybody was very quick to point out, like, hey, this article's really suspicious. I feel like a large part of it kind of got subsided, even though it got circulated really quick, really fast. But a lot of people pulled retractions and were like, oh, that thing I retweeted earlier, I found out is really suspicious. So, yeah, it was it's been a very interesting couple of weeks in the manga industry. And I haven't even talked about, there have been a ton of licenses that have come out. There's been so much going on. But I don't want to make this video overly long. I just want to kind of give you a quick rundown. One thing I will say is that Nixla and the GNCRT are going to be doing another webinar on June 17th at 7 p.m. I'm going to put the registration information down below. This one is actually going to be really great. I'm super excited about this. It's Manga in Libraries, Representation of Girls and Women in Manga, and we are bringing in some experts who are going to really illuminate the discussion. I'm going to be part of this one as well as I was the previous one. And then after this, I'm actually going to take a step back and let some other voices kind of speak and actually, you know, you'll hear from people who have other expertise. But for this one, we have some really great discussion to be had, and I really hope you register and come participate. We had such a great experience with our last webinar. Those of you who came were just absolutely phenomenal in the chat and provided so much amazing information. And I'm really looking forward to this one. It's gonna be so good. So we're going to be talking about the context of gender expectations in Japan, sexuality and fan service in manga, titles with positive representation, and how to collection develop to find those things with positive representation. I've been pulling my resources, been bringing all my research out, and I'm just super stoked because this is a topic that I really enjoy talking about. So, like I said, the registration information is down below. Please register. I'd love to see you there. Even if you can't actually make it that day of, register and you'll get all the information and all of the materials and everything. But I'd really like to see you there and see you in the chat, and just it'd be so great. Because, like I said, the chat last time was just absolutely phenomenal. You guys were so amazing. So that's really it for this week. I'm gonna just let it go from here, and I will see you in the next video.